Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. This is the second webinar, and the topic today is Supercharge your emotional management. So thank you for some of you who have been waiting. Yeah, hope and thank you for also taking time for your lunch as well to come and join us. Now, my name is Chantel, and I will be your host for today. The speaker will be Muihan, which I will introduce him to you later. Now, there are some people who was asking me actually about why are you having this? What is this Save My Sanity? Why do you have this type of series of webinar? And I go on and say, oh, this is well. So there's a lot of people who are actually asking us like, what is this about? And in truth, we're actually doing it free as well, if you notice, for people because we want to help people right now. So I'm going to play a little video for you to tell you why we have this webinars, a series of webinars. Going to be every week for this month, and it's going to be probably once or twice a month as we can find the speakers for you. Yeah, so I will play a video for you and have fun watching it. Okay, so that's a little bit of introduction about why that we have the webinar series. Now, again, it's just not for ladies. Yes, it started out from the survey for the working mothers, but we notice it's for everyone, and we want to help everyone during this pandemic. So, without further ado, I'm going to invite Mui Han, who's a very good and old friend of mine, who is the expert in EQ, right? So, I'm gonna bring him on here. Hi, Mui Han.
Hey, hi, Chantel. Everybody.
Thank you so much for doing this free webinar and being so kind to share all your tips for us.
So my pleasure.
What I'll do, I'll probably give it over to you to probably introduce yourself as well.
Sure, great. So very good afternoon.
Oops, sorry. Sorry. Okay, let me go. Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon, dear audience. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. I'm very glad to see you. My name is Mui Han. Just a brief background on myself. These days, I run my own boutique management consultancy, focusing in the areas of strategy, deployment, change management, and of course, the people side of things. People include talent management, performance management, and even rewards management, right? Prior setting my own big with PricewaterhouseCoopers Advisory Services, PwC, look at HR advisory. My background before that was in FMCG operations. Decided to move to understanding people more. That's how I got into the training and HR consulting world. So these days, my passion is really trying to help younger people to make sure that they have a smoother path to employment. Therefore, I run a lot of CSR programs in the Malaysian universities, as well as also have a weekly Friday night session to gather young people and professionals just for them to network. That is the whole purpose. The whole purpose is just to help the young people to be more accustomed or to be more confident when talking to professionals, right? So that's just a very brief background on myself. And I think, Chantel, should I go ahead or?
Yeah, you should go ahead so we not to waste time. So if you're all ready to go ahead, please put a thumbs up or love that we know that you're all supercharged to hear from Mui Han. Okay, so type in some things in the comments, all right? And I'll hand it over to you, Mui Han. Enjoy.
Thank you. Yeah. So as we go along, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop it into the comment section. because we wanted to keep this as compact as possible, in line with your lunch time and not overrun the time that we have located. I thought I better jump in, okay? And thank you for all your for all of you tuning in. I know most of you are doing lunch now, or even some of you just finishing your how to say, your meetings and things like that, right? So so the area that we wanted to focus very much upon today is on the area of emotional management, right? And to do that, I want to get my good friend up here, right? So I just acquired my good friend here. I haven't given him a name yet, but I'm thinking of calling him Hans probably. So that's so. More so, jokes aside, I wanted to use the model of the brain to show you one particular area of the brain that probably need to have more, like, which is the actual emotional part of the brain, right? So the part of the brain is in control of our emotions, as well as also emotion memories are stored, right? So if I can just dismantle my good friend here so that you can see clearer, right? And let me just put it clearer to the video. So you have seen that I have tagged 3 parts here. There is the orange tag, the pink tag, and of course the blue smiley tag, all right? So a very quick understanding of how things work is, we are just talking about these 3 parts of the brain for this afternoon discussion. In fact, the human brain is a very, very complex organ, all right? But for discussion purposes, this afternoon, we're just going to look at these 3 parts of the brain, right? So let's which is right in the center, right? So that part is what we call the thalamus. So thalamus is an organ which is responsible for the ultimate distribution of inputs from the body, from the 5 senses. So whatever we see, we hear, we feel, we touch, and we taste, right? Or smell, taste, right? All these inputs will go to the brain, and the first part of the brain that it arrives is actually the thalamus. And from the thalamus, it will distribute to the different parts of the brain. Now, again, for discussion purposes, we're only going to talk about another 2 parts of the brain, so that you can have some understanding of what we want to discuss further, right? So first part of the brain is where we find the orange tag is, okay? The orange tag here. So the orange tag here is actually just behind our forehead. And this part of the brain is where we call the prefrontal cortex, all right? The prefrontal cortex is actually where what we call higher order thinking happens, or where all the cognitive things happen, or where thinking happens, so to say. So everything that is rational, things that it involves analysis, numeracy, languages, all are happening in this part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, right? And I think that is easy to understand because most of us associate the definition of human brain to that. But there are also other parts of the brain that is in charge for other things, which is then represented by the pink tag here. So the pink tag here is this entire area is called the limbic area. Limbic area traditionally has been known to be the emotional center of the brain. So all our emotions are actually kept here, or all the emotional decisions are actually being, triggered here itself, right? And in the middle of the limbic system, there's one particular, what we call a peanut-sized organ called the amygdala, right? So, and most people have known the amygdala as the emotional brain, right? So just a very quick snapshot of where it's where in this sense, right? Now, what happens here is this then. Because our actions are very, very driven by our emotions, primarily because of the, if you can look at the brain again, just the location itself, the location between the prefrontal cortex versus the thalamus and versus the amygdala and the thalamus. So you can see that actually these 2 are very close together compared to the prefrontal cortex, which is further in front in that sense. So with that in mind, after understanding the neuroscience of it, you'll find that why human beings are always so quote-unquote emotional first before rational. Simply because the information goes to the emotional part of the brain first before the rational part of the brain. So as a result of that, we will view all things from an emotional lens first before the rational lens. This is how the research have shown. And they only found this research very viable with the invention of the functional MRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, so that they can actually see which part of the brain fires depending on what stimulus is given to the candidate or to the subject in that sense, right? Now, why I want to talk about the brain, which is doesn't sound like our topic today, but important to know that the emotion part of the brain, the amygdala and the limbic area, is a very, very reactive area. So a lot of times, you can't control why you behave in a certain manner because of past experiences. And the limbic area also stores a lot of past emotional memory. So as a result of it, we become very reactive based on past incidences, right? And this is also an area where creates a lot of stress, because the moment that is triggered, the emotional brain is triggered, it triggers the body to release the stress hormone called cortisol. And when the stress hormone cortisol is released in the bloodstream, our entire body gets prepared to what we call a fight and flight response, right? That is also why you feel stress. When you feel that there's a triggering or stress, you feel stress. Your body doesn't feel nice, right? Either you can't sleep, you find that you're very edgy, some of you have a rise in temperature, heartbeats, and so on and so forth. Some palpates and things like that. So this is a very natural bodily reaction towards the secretion or the concentration of the stress hormone in our body, right? And from research, they have found that high concentration of cortisol is actually not good for the body, not good for the body at all. In fact, if you have too high of a concentration and you don't manage it well, it could lead to not only diseases, but as well as a degradation to mental health. So when Chantel was talking to me, we thought this would be a good topic to actually share with everybody. Plus, the survey also showed that especially all the working moms have responded to say that in the new work environment of working from home, managing multiple personal and corporate stakeholders, they have additional pressure and stress. And as a result of that, learning one of these few of these techniques will help them, and that's why we have come to talk about this, right? So coming back to my friend, right? So just wanted to highlight more area which lead to our next discussion point, right? So the other area that we want to talk about is, if you can notice between the pink area, which is the amygdala or the limbic area, and the other side, and orange sticker, which is the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, right? There is in between area, and in between area here is what they call the middle prefrontal cortex, right? It's a bit mouthful, I know, but what does a middle prefrontal cortex mean? So middle prefrontal cortex is basically still part of the prefrontal cortex, is part of the thinking brain, but because it is nearer to the limbic area, nearer to the emotional brain, it therefore has the duty to manage and regulate the emotional brain, right? And the research showed that if you're able to develop and train your middle prefrontal cortex, you are definitely better off in managing your emotions, managing your stress, right? So can I repeat that? Back to friend, you know the area between the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking brain, which is the rational side of things, and the limbic area, which is the emotional side of things. In between is what they call the middle prefrontal cortex, but the middle prefrontal cortex still belongs to the thinking brain, so to say. And if you train this part of the brain or train this muscle to develop this muscle, you are able to manage your emotions as well as your stress better, right? So that is a very good just snapshot of you from a neuroscience perspective. If you do have any questions, feel free to just drop it in. For those who have just joined us, just wanted to welcome all of you on board. Today, we are talking about techniques for you to supercharge your emotional management. And for the last 10 minutes or so, I've just given a very, very high-level, quick knowledge sharing on how the brain works, especially the emotional brain, okay? Yeah, there's a question to down and yeah, do you have questions for me? Can tell.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is say that emotions can be trained and all. So sometimes some people say that, oh, when they're in a bad mood, for example, right, when you're really in a very bad mood. So basically, is it that they're able to train their bad mood, to come to a good mood? Or some people say that, this person got, for ladies, they said, the time of the month, or things like that. So how does that actually would relate, like bad moods and the time of the month, in order to regulate emotions?
Yeah. So just to correct you a bit, Chantel, we cannot train the emotions. Emotions are very natural for us. We feel what we feel, lah. And different people have different feelings at different times as well as the intensity, because some of us have different backgrounds. So from the research, they found that in the emotional part of the brain, which is the limbic area, besides it is the trigger point for all emotions, it is also where what we call emotional memories are stored. So these two are interlinked quite closely. How do we feel and what is the past memory of how we felt about certain things? Therefore, why sometimes you find that certain people have very intense emotion towards certain things, whereas others don't have, is something to do with what they call past association or past experiences that may have conditioned the way they think in that sense. Now, coming back, the part of the area that we talk you can train is how to manage these emotions. That part is trainable because anything that belongs to the prefrontal cortex, the rational brain, is something that you can develop and you can train, so to say. So we are talking about the part of the brain that you need to train to learn how to manage your emotions better. And the more work you do in this particular area, then you are in better control of your emotions. Because if not, once your emotions are triggered, the body naturally responds to it. And when the body responds to it, that is where usually the mechanism is the secretion of the stress hormone cortisol. So that's why your whole body don't feel nice, is because of cortisol. And how do you stop cortisol secretion? Is actually you can't, because the emotions has been already triggered. Either you are in a state of trouble or a state of you need to survive, and sometimes it's a misguided or delusional state of threat that happens a lot in today's modern context. Where we are trying to come from is the middle part, which we want to spend more time. And I think probably now is a good opening for me to jump into the techniques. Okay.
Do jump into the techniques now. So for those of you, any questions, just leave it inside. We'll try to answer. Don't be shy. Just ask whatever you want, and we'll try to answer your questions. Okay. So Muihan, I'll leave you to teaching the techniques now.
Okay. So with that, just wanted to pull a few slides to show you. Okay. So I base my work on, or base my session here based on the work of Dr. Dan Siegel. Okay, you can actually check him out. So Dan Siegel is a neuroscientist, have done a lot of work on the middle prefrontal cortex. So he studied how is it developed, if there is an issue with that part of the brain, what is the implication, the development of person to communication styles. And of course, if you're in a corporate world, you cannot run away from leadership styles and things like that, right? The other person that we want to share, which actually talk about the techniques, is this guy called Dr. Richard Boatis. So Richard Boatis is almost equivalent to Daniel Goleman in the EQ world, in the emotional intelligence world, because both of them do significant work and research, right? So one of the models that Boatis actually had this, just make it for you to see, is to really talk about there are two cycles that happens for us. One is what we call the renewal cycle. The other one is what we call the sacrifice syndrome. Okay, and most of the time we switch between these two, right? Sometimes more to one side, sometimes balance to a certain extent. So sacrifice syndrome is easy to explain. Sacrifice syndrome is something that every time we get into a situation that needs our attention, that we are very stressed out, we feel threatened, we feel stressed and things like that, right? If we are not careful, then we may play the victim card, or maybe do not take what we call resonance leadership, so to say, right? So we in the corporate world is always the blame game. Sometimes even the corporate world, even in our personal home, we blame our spouse, we blame our parents, we blame our siblings and things like that. So the victim blaming mechanism is where the sacrifice syndrome is. So we sacrifice somebody. Either we sacrifice others or we sacrifice ourselves. So it's very common that after we blame everybody, then no one else to blame, people to blame, we blame ourselves, which is also not positive, because all this will continue to make you, trapped in a very vicious cycle of negativity. Then you will just spiral down, and you're not careful, you get into depression, which is also one of the things that we talk about. But if you look at your left side is the renewal cycle. Renewal cycle are activities that you can do to help yourself to grow, all right? And there are a few categories of activities which I want to walk through in a short while. But basically, grow where? Right? So they have done enough research to show by doing these 4 categories of activities, the muscles, quote unquote, the muscles, because the brain also technically don't have muscles, but just to use the muscles so that you can understand, the muscles in the middle prefrontal cortex strengthens intensively if you practice 4 categories of activities, all right? Which I want to quickly run through what are the 4. And we have questions, feel free to in the section as I do this, okay? So what are the 4 categories of activities you should do, all right? And the first category is what we call mindfulness, okay? And mindfulness here doesn't just involve meditation. Of course, mindfulness meditation is a very, very good practice. Mindfulness meditation, generally, there's 2 types. What is what we call the focused attention, something that I practice as also teach, focusing on your breath, right? That's what we call focused attention. Or you practice something called open awareness. Open awareness here is just being mindful of your surroundings and anything that you hear, you feel, you taste, okay? And then just note the sensation of this stimulus from your environment, okay? And this is a meditation practice. That means you are setting aside quiet time, for yourself. It could be as short as 5 minutes to as long as 1-2 hours a day, depending on your maturity of a practice. This is mindfulness meditation. But under mindfulness itself, Richard Boatis classified other categories of activities, other activities. The other activity is actually yoga. So for all you who are yoga practitioners out there, please do more yoga, or please be more consistent in your yoga practice, because every time you do yoga, you're actually strengthening this part of the brain that is in charge for emotional management, right? So go ahead, don't skip your yoga sessions, all right, and be committed to it, all right? So yoga is the next category, the next activity. Besides yoga, you can also do something like Tai Chi, all right? So Tai Chi, there's many variations of Tai Chi. So yoga, Tai Chi, mindfulness meditation. 4th one is actually praying, right? So, and Richard Boatis and his team qualified that you need to pray to a loving entity or loving God, so to say, right? So for all of you who are religious out there and who hold a certain faith, right, we really do encourage you to continuously practice your faith in a more systematic and periodic basis. So in this case, I always like what my Muslim friends have practiced of 5 prayers a day kind, which is very, very powerful, because for 5 times a day, you're actually recharging not only your commitment to your maker, but as well as this part of the brain that is very, very important for emotional management, all right? For the rest, like the Hindus, Christians, even the Buddhists, I know you have the morning and evening prayers. Please do them. Do your Friday nights prayer or your mass, as well as also the Sundays sessions and things like that. So the 4 activities, let me just reiterate under this category of mindfulness. So number 1 is mindfulness meditation. Number 2 is yoga. 3 is Tai Chi. 4 is prayer, okay? And prayer to a loving entity, of course. And there's and there's a 5th activity classified under mindfulness, which is actually exercise, right? But here they put light moderate exercise, because intensive exercise actually creates stress to the body. So what do we mean by light exercise? Is basically the recommended half an hour, 3 times a week kind of session. And personally, myself, I practice a lot of not even brisk walking, like just normal walking, but I will walk about 1-2 hours, 3 times a week. This is something very, very positive, help you to be very focused and concentrate. And one of the things when I do with my walking, I don't have any earphones with me, not hearing anything, no, and also just focus on my walking, all right? Now, there's a question here to talk about mindfulness, varies every time. What frequency consider healthy or not healthy? Okay, so thank you, Iman, for that question. I think that the focus here is consistency in practice, and as anything goes, and the more consistent you put in the practice, therefore it becomes easier and more natural, right? So yes, as a new practitioner in anything, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, or even playing badminton, all right, we could be very, what we call Malay, there's a Malay saying called hangat hangat tahi ayam. So we are very gung-ho in the beginning, then slowly dwindle. So what we will do here is to suggest that you do it the other way around. Take more baby steps, all right? Try slower intensity in the beginning, and the more comfortable you are, then you increase the intensity. But I think commitment and consistency is key here, if I can answer your question, right? And also try to find some time that is very more realistic for you to do it. If not, becomes a drag. So hope that answer your question. Okay, so that is the first category of activity, and I think I need to speed up a bit because I got three more. Right? So the second category of activity, as explained in this research by Richard Baptiste and his team, is actually called compassion. Right? And what constitutes compassion? All right. So I'm going to say something very controversial. Also here is International Women's Day in conjunction, but it is from the research. Just to qualify, I am not totally against single people. So from research, they found that married people are quote unquote happier than single people, but there's a qualifier. You must be married to or being in a loving relationship, right? So if you are not in a loving relationship, if you come back and when you see your spouse, you have a distaste or you have what we call contempt for your spouse, then you're better off being single, right? So Richard Baptiste and his team found that being in a loving relationship actually helped to supercharge the middle prefrontal cortex, right? So for those of you who are in a loving relationship, please spend and enjoy more time with your partner, right? This one really, really helps you in developing this part of the brain, right? But if you are in a relationship where you spend more time with your partner and you get more distress, you get more stress, you get more, some of us get more angry and a lot of fear and things like that. Therefore, maybe you need to maybe seek help to actually look at your relationship with your spouse, right? But the qualifier here is it must be a loving relationship. So under this category of compassion, the first activity is being in a loving relationship. Then that would help to build that part of the brain. Second one is a very interesting activity. It is called having pets you can pet. So it's very specific. It's not just having pet, but you must have pets that you can pet. You can, sayang them and things like that. And in this research, they classify 4 types of pets or 4 particular animals that you should have to help you to enjoy this benefit. What are they? So top of the list is dogs. Okay, so it's dogs, cats, horses, and monkeys, right? So dogs, cats, horses, and monkeys, right? So these are the animals which you can actually hold and touch and pet. And in this research as well, they specifically say not fish. Okay, so I've been talking about this topic for many years, all right, and I also realize sometimes I don't understand because I don't have a pet myself. My wife is actually allergic to furry animals, so I cannot contextualize this. So and one time I remember in one of my training sessions, one of my participants stopped me, say, Muihan, I can explain. Since you don't explain well, I explain, because she's a dog lover and she have having dogs since very young, right? So she explains that when she talks to her dog after a frustrating day in office, she goes back, she talks to her dog, she will notice that her dog actually able to show the kind of facial expression that he is have some kind of understanding to her pain, right? And after that, she get to hug her dog, or her dog come her to manja a bit. Then she feels very, very well. So that's why they found that you must have pets that you can actually hold on to, you can touch. At the same time, they are able to show you some form of empathy look when you talk to them. These are the kind of animals that you should keep as pets and enjoy your time with them, because it also builds that part of the brain. All right. So maybe the joke is with fish, you can't do anything because no matter you're sad, you're happy, the fish also still give you the same look, the same so-called goldfish look, so to say. Right. So that is the second. The first in this category is being in a loving relationship. Second activity is having pets that you can pet. Third activity is doing volunteer activity, volunteering programs. So if you like to do social work, continue to do it. Help the poor, help the needy, help the elderly. So that is the third activity. Fourth activity in compassion is definitely helping your own family members, especially those who are elderly and disabled, right? So if you practice any of these four activities under the category of compassion, again, that portion of the brain has been shown to be strengthened. And as a result of that, you are better in control of your emotions. That's why some of you, you probably have done this in the past, but you have not know why it is. Now there's actual science to back it up. Some of you are very gung-ho in doing social work. Every weekend you go out there to help the poor and the needy, and then you feel guilty. There's a reason for that, because your brain actually develops itself, and that helps you to manage your emotions better, right? So given categories, mindfulness and compassion. Now I'm going to move on to the third category, looking at time that we have, which is actually hope, right? So in hope, there are only two things or two activities that is being prescribed here. The first activity is actually to spend time with the people to talk about your future, either personal or shared. And this is got to do with positive friends or positive support. And I feel that a lot of times, because I coach many managers in the corporate world, I find that it's not so easy in the working world to find support. And I also find that, especially to our target audience, which is the working moms, especially those of you who are out there, finding support for yourself may be challenging in that sense. Because there's a lot of expectation with your stakeholders, with your spouse, with your family members, with your bosses, and so on and so forth, right? So if you don't have that support, it is very critical that you actually find that support either within your organization or within your home or within your family. Or if you can't do that, you can't find that support, do seek outside external help, because it is really, really important. Finding like-minded people that is positive, that helps you to really think about things or talk about the future in a more hopeful manner, right? So I find that one of the things that we lack, especially in this part of the world, we have not been taught to do proper counseling or do proper listening to our friends and family members. So every time that our family and friends that come to us to actually vent their frustrations or some of the hurt they have, we don't know what to do, right? As a friend or as a family member, we don't know what to say, and we are very afraid of that awkward silence if we don't say anything. So my observation, we jump into two extremes. One extreme is we come and try to solve that person's problem, trying to give 1,001 solutions, which is actually not the case. That person is not asking for solutions. He just needs a space to express his disappointment and frustration so that at least there's a listening ear. But because we are not trained to counsel this person, we come into a solution mode. So we jump and give 1,001 solution. The other category or the other extreme, which I find most Malaysians, at least in this part of the world, what we do is we actually become we scared that this person feel bad about himself or herself. So we also start telling our own frustration. So it's like not fire to fire, but we're trying to make ourselves make that person feel better by telling our own personal tragedies or our own personal misfortunes, which again doesn't help because you are actually contributing to the negativity, right? So finding positive people support, it may not even be your friends, to be very honest, because sometimes friends may not able to offer you this, to actually help you in times of trouble and danger is very, very critical. And if you are able to have this consistently, your middle prefrontal cortex also get developed, right? So that is hope. Talking about activities, of course, finding that kind of positivity of talking about your future vision and dreams. And I think that is also somewhere, some platform that is also missing in our culture and society a lot of times, right? So there are two activities. One is finding the support group, right, for you to actually share your frustration so that they hear you out, they counsel you, and so on and so forth. Second one is really talking about your vision and dreams for the future, right? And the last category of activity you should have is called fun, right? Fun after all very, very universal and understandable. But a lot of times we stop having fun or we forgot to have fun. So if you have not done something fun for the last few weeks, why don't you plan something fun this weekend, right? What you consider as fun and something that you have not done for a long time, which you enjoy doing in the past, please plan it on a weekly basis, if can, a few days once, because it does help to recharge that part of the brain, or not recharge, supercharge that part of the brain to make you in better control of your emotion. Okay, so yes, and I think that's my last slide.
Wow, there's quite a bit of things, and especially in a short time as well. So we do hear quite a bit of things. For those of you who have just joined as well, Muihan has shared a lot of tips basically on how to manage the emotions. So we started off in a biological brain introduction earlier as well. But what we do know is that emotions are actually we can train ourselves. Yeah, we can train ourselves to manage it better, and if we don't, it will cause us a lot of health issues as well by the cortisol. And here he says a lot of things. There are mindfulness, there's things in compassion, and things on having fun as well. Yeah. So far there's that, and it's actually in truth. How long does it take? For example, like let's say for somebody who is to really be able to handle their emotions better. How long usually, if they really be very diligent and consistent, usually how long would it take to build that muscle?
Yeah. So there are a few considerations. There's no definite timeline. Reason being, again, coming back to my friend, when we show you the model here, the red portion of it, which is the the area, which stores all the emotional memories. If you're a person that grow up with a lot of trauma, and when I say grow up, doesn't even mean young. So for instance, you've been working for 10 or 15 years in your career, and in the early years of your career, you have experienced some bit of traumatic experience in your workplace. Either your boss is very pushy or is very demanding, or sometimes abusive, quote unquote, to a certain extent, verbal abuse, definitely. Therefore, you may have stored that kind of pain and emotions in your limbic area or in your amygdala. And for these people, they will tend to have more stress compared to a person that is less have this kind of experiences. That's why a lot of times when we talk to fresh graduates, they don't have this problem because they're coming from a perception that, it is almost we call them naive. To the extent they are pure in a way, because I always say that their limbic area has not been contaminated yet. So for a person that with a lot of emotional baggage, coming back to your point, you may need to spend more time and more work, right? And it's not just it's just like any muscles in the body. It's not that you just need to practice lifting weights for 2 months and then you are good. You build your muscles and that's it. No, you need to consistently do it. I think the whole idea here is consistency rather than intensity, right? So you don't intensely do it and then stop after you think you have achieved it, but you need to consistently do it so that you help to continuously regulate your emotions better. Okay.
Okay, so I think we'll probably have another question. Probably we add a couple of minutes, you guys, just to answer some questions as well. Yeah. So we have here. So Chiwe Ang said, for better understanding, is good emotional management equal to no emotions, or how do we define as a good emotional management?
Okay, so thank you for that question, Chiwe. So no, the answer is no. The answer is having good emotional management doesn't mean that you have no emotions. If you have no emotions, then we are all robots. So we still want your emotions. We still want you to have emotions and not to suppress them, because suppressing them will lead to other things. But what we don't want you to do is we don't want you to react based on emotions. Feeling frustrated is fine, but acting out of frustration is not good, usually, in that sense. So can I just repeat that for clarity? All right. So feeling frustrated, feeling stressed, sad, feeling fearful, feeling angry, it is all very natural because we are human beings. But acting out of anger, acting out of frustration, acting out of fear, usually the consequences or the results are no good. Because somehow think caution has happened. And as human beings, we emphasize a lot on the cognitive part, right? So what we wanted you to build good emotion management is to ensure that while you feel that feeling or you feel that emotion, we want you to process it in your thinking capacity to say whether, based on these emotions that I feel, what should be my appropriate response, right? Do some cost-benefit analysis, do some consequential thinking, right? Because by doing that, definitely you are able to have better relationship with your stakeholders and also make better decisions. But if you just rely on your reaction to the emotion, usually the outcomes are negative or no good. Not to say all of them are bad, but usually usually the outcomes are negative in that sense, right? So hope that answers the question.
There's another question as well from Steph Ngao. How to tell someone in a professional setting that they need to develop or work on their emotional management without being personal?
Very much depending on what's your relationship with this person. Of course, if he or she is your boss, then it's slightly difficult to actually give feedback to him. I think we're still in a culture that quite hierarchical, and telling your boss that he don't have EQ is a is a career limiting move that I don't suggest. All right. But if he's your subordinate, then you can of course use your opportunity to really help this person in either performance appraisal time or even your periodic coaching sessions, just to say that, for your further professional development, one area I thought you probably could to look at is this, and you give some examples of feedback of what you have observed, what kind of impact this person has created, and how that different behavior or how a different response to it would definitely change the way. With your boss, I think it's a little bit tricky. It really needs to be depend on the degree of your relationship with him or her, since you put as your boss, right? If you have a good relationship or a longer term relationship, probably you can raise this topic in times of maybe when you are more close to this person as a friend or different perspective, or even maybe just to get your boss to have more consequential thinking. So you take the opportunity of a particular activity and don't do it then, do it maybe after that, right? And just to say, by the way, boss, do you remember 3 weeks ago we were in this situation? This was your response. I was just looking at it and looking at the different reactions, so use it as a discussion, so for learning purposes. And you can make it non-personal to say that, wanted to see how can we do things differently or how to explore alternatives to the response. and you can very much clarify to say that you're not being finding fault or being personal with this particular boss of yours, right? So if you are the superior, then it's easier. But if you're the subordinate, I think it needs a bit of tact, needs a bit of time, and probably you need to give subtle hints slowly before actually help to that person to see it. And I think coming back to the point, I think the therapist's philosophy is also very good. Sometimes it's very hard to help a person to change him or herself if that person is not willing to. So understanding that willingness and openness to change and learn is very critical. If you, for whatever reason, if you assess that this person is not willing and not open to listen to feedback or to change, the whole conversation can backfire on you, right? And this is where I find why we talk about having yourself to manage first. Don't worry too much about managing other people's emotion. If you can able to manage your own emotion, and if all of us can do that, then definitely the work environment or even your personal lives, it will improve tremendously.
Yep. Thank you, Mui-Han, for the sharing as well. Yeah, we was a little I'm kind of like on the time, sorry, but it's always very interesting, and I like on Mui-Han actually mentioned that a lot of you just remember that you need to work on your emotions yourself first, then you can manage it better outwards. Now, just to share, we're gonna be emailing to you guys for all of you as well, some checklists as well. So those of you who have not registered, I'm gonna put the link here. So those of you not registered, please do register, all right, in the link here. And we will send you email on the checklist on what Mui-Han has actually shared. And as well informations, there are some of in-house and public trainings that we run that you might be interested on handling the emotions as well, that we will also share inside the email. So if you have not registered, please do. So those of you registered, no need to register again. We will send to you the emails. And just to also let you know, we've got another one coming up, another webinar coming up on Monday. This is about loving others without losing yourself. So this is also what Mui-Han actually said, that compassion on loving others is a way to manage your emotions, but also on the other hand, that not to lose yourself. So this is another one of our next event coming up she's a speaker, she's a clinical psychologist. So do stay tuned. Now, so this is actually coming up to the end of our webinar already. Thank you very, very much, Mui-Han. And thank you everybody for joining us and having a lunchtime with us. If there's also any questions, you can always contact any of us and we will try to attend to all your questions as much as possible. All right. Thank you, Mui-Han.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.